that were previously an obstacle to me being able to, do everything I wanted to do, how am I going to make sure that that doesn't stand in my way this time around? And, you've already got the Supreme Court in a lot of ways, not fully, but in many ways kind of, it's shaped by his choices that are on the court. He's likely to get at least one more Supreme Court pick. The Supreme Court has already said that he's immune for any quote unquote official acts. What exactly that means is yet to be adjudicated, but, wide bandwidth there for his own personal immunity. So I think there's going to be very little that stands in his way in terms of getting what he wants and when he wants it.
I think yes and no in terms of this. For example, it gets down to what are we actually talking about here? So for, let's say, the DEI like woke thing, right? That's an area where Pete Hegseth is going to have the total backing of the president. Let's see also in terms of, I think it really is just going to depend on a case-by-case basis, because even for what you said about recess appointments, it may be true that John Thune said, yeah, let's do recess appointments. Guess what Mitch McConnell said today? We're not doing any recess appointments. And John Thune was like, we don't have the support in the conference to do any recess appointments. Basically, they don't want to cave to the precedent because in the future, they don't want Democrats, when they have power, to do recess appointments too.
Right.
Which is funny, but it's, it does show you that they still have some authority.
But the Trump people have worked out this provision that they think that they could use where there's this technicality when if the House and the Senate are in dispute about whether or not they're adjourned and in a recess, then the president can come in and say, we're in a recess. And so that's the power that they plan to use to basically have this led from the White House, where it's like, we don't really care, John Thune and Mitch McConnell, whether you have the votes to go into recess. We're gonna do it. And maybe ultimately through the courts and blah, 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 maybe there's some pushback, but who knows? Trump's got a lot of his own judges on the bench at this point, and a Supreme Court that's quite amenable to him as well. But, they have plans in place to get even someone like a Matt Gaetz or an RFK Jr. or whoever, Tulsi, whoever you think is the most difficult to confirm, to get them through, which is why I just think that, I think that I think there is a concerted plan to make sure that there is no institutional obstacle to Trump doing whatever Trump wants to do. What does that mean? I don't think we really know, because it's not like we could have predicted Stop the Steal in advance. Correct. It's not like we could have predicted, the Black Lives Matter protests and Trump saying, hey, let's just go and shoot the protesters in the legs. Like, I don't know that we know what that's ultimately going to mean in terms of how he uses the, the powers of the government and the military and whatever. But that, to me, getting all of those roadblocks that previously irked him out of the way is the primary thrust of both the sort of policy thinking that's going into the transition and certainly into these personnel choices.
Well, I don't think there's any policy thinking going into the transition.
No, but I'm talking about, like, for example, the thing about how we could use this policy to get into recess.
Yes, yeah.
Those sorts of things. How Jeff talked about, actually you can use a national security emergency to institute all of your tariffs. Like, there is thinking about how they can basically bypass any sort of thing that was a check previously and get done whatever the hell it is that they want to get done.
I don't think that's an incorrect view of it. I think it will really come down. But first of all, Trump is a deeply capricious person who changes his mind literally constantly, and depending on the last person that he spoke to. So anybody who thinks he has some concerted grand plan or any of that, I don't think any of that is true. I do think it's correct that the picks that he has gone with are based upon personal loyalty and basically nothing else. I think that could have great, it can have a lot of pluses and minuses. In some cases, when he wants to do good things, it'll be fantastic. In some cases, whenever he wants to follow through on Stop the Steal or some other bullshit like that, it can be very detrimental to the American system. The question really will come down to what the institutional pushback within the permanent bureaucracy will look like, what Congress and its immense powers will be able to flex, and then, of course, the Supreme Court. I do think people overestimate the loyalty that the Supreme Court will give Donald Trump. Don't forget, while they did give him immunity, under the last Roberts term, they shot down numerous attempts by him to bypass the interagency process, from the census, the so-called travel, like Muslim ban, and I can go on forever. I mean, the Obamacare thing even before that. So there are many examples of of Trump trying to use this new legal authority, where and this is where I think Jeff is also underestimating what the legal system and the Ninth Circuit and the way our entire appellate courts work and the wrench that they can throw in. You can theorize all day long. Joe Biden tried to do a lot of things under executive order, like this with student loan and all that other stuff. This shit gets struck down constantly. The appellate courts can come in and they can change things. So I wouldn't underestimate on the other side what the institutional checks are, although it will be a much more of a loyalist administration. But I think we knew that going in. I think we also knew that going in.
I knew that going in.
Yeah, certainly, but I think other people did too.
I knew that going in. I don't know if that's what, I do think that there is a significant frustration with democracy in the public, where the idea of he's just going to be a strong man and come in and his I'm going to be a dictator on day one. For some people that was something they had to overcome to vote for him, and for some people that was a feature, not a bug. Yeah. That was an affirmative part of the pitch of hey, democracy, this doesn't seem so great. Let's just get someone in there who's gonna do whatever he wants to do. So yeah, in that sense, I think there is a chunk of the public that basically voted for authoritarian power taking. And I think that's the plan and what we're seeing effectuated here, which it doesn't, it's entirely consistent with what he was saying and with the way he wanted to operate in the first term. And the other thing is, and then you can respond if you want. We'll move on because we've been talking about this for a while. But you also see a number of previously bastions of quote unquote resistance that have really, out of fear or necessity or whatever, have really capitulated to Trump. So even before the election, you saw Bezos being Washington Post, we're not going to do an endorsement. You saw Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, Tim Cook, Tim Apple as Trump calls him, all of them calling Trump, hey, big guy, just calling to check in. I'm really excited for the next administration, trying to make nice with him. Because they know that the way that he was going to get his loyals in place and he was going to use the federal government to, go after, whether it's Amazon, which has tons of government contracts, or crack down on Facebook for any sort of political speech on there that he doesn't like, et cetera, et cetera. The powers of the federal government are vast and he's not afraid to weaponize them. So there was a lot of already capitulation to that. And then one funny and annoying indicator of this as well, you had Morning Joe and Mika.
Yes, we're going to cover it tomorrow. I think we have to.
But just to tease it for now, Joe and Mika making the trek down to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee and kiss the ring. And Steve Bannon is out there saying, hey, he literally said Matt Gaetz is going to prosecute MSNBC host. Ari Melber, he named specifically.
Don't get my hopes.
So you think Joe and Mika are thinking hey, maybe we need to get on the other side of this just to be sure and hedge our bets. So I also think that some of the previous bastions of resistance in 2016, we already know are not going to be there this time around as well. And, I think the courts could also be part of that.
It's certainly possible. I would see, the thing is that this time around, the grounds for resistance are just not there. Trump is not a one-off. He's the democratically elected, twice elected
Well, there's
president.
Always grounds for resistance.
No, but I'm saying the Russiagate shock, the lack of the popular vote, all that stuff last time around, it's gone. And it should be gone. Trump has been literally elected with the popular vote with a mandate to govern, not for the first time for Republicans since 2004. So you have to adjust your priors, just dramatically.
And a lot of liberals have the view, basically, that you express, Saagar, of hey, you people voted for this, you're going to get what you deserve, is the attitude. It's not I think
I would
that's
reframe it, not deserve.
I think that's outrageous, but that is what there's Latinos, you voted for mass deportation, okay, this is what Joy Reid said, now you're responsible for your mixed status family getting deported. Okay, Muslim Americans, you voted for Trump, enjoy as your family members are slaughtered in Gaza and the West Bank is, permanently annexed, et cetera, et cetera. I think that that's personally, from the liberal perspective, I know you come at this from a different angle.
Yeah, I'm not
but from the
saying
liberal perspective, I think that is disgusting. to just like, okay, you deserve what you get, et cetera, et cetera. But that's part of the capitulation to this view is like, we're not going to fight it. Like, enjoy your new Muslim ban, enjoy your mass deportation. If you all voted for this, you get what you deserve.
Yeah, well, and mine is more of an affirmation. I'm like, look, I think they actually want it, and I think they should get it. And I also think that people for so long have been wondering, like, what's it like to actually blow stuff up? And it's like, let's find